Honor in D&D ties directly into alignment, the law, and the chaos. But more than that, alignment then ties into the world building, which can then affect everything else. Welcome to Phillips's Crusade, where my armchair ethics videos did surprisingly well. That would be the vegans and the child murder one, so I think more ethics are in order. Leave some comments, I'd love ideas, just keep in mind I didn't pay much attention in ethics class. So, honor. I picture the Paladin's Oath, the dwarf's clan loyalty in the face of death, and the fact that betrayal, while dishonorable, isn't necessarily good or evil. Thus, I consider honor a lawful value, and it's a dangerous one too. Honor is living up to loyalties you have and any expectations of those loyalties, basically a code of conduct that is presented as a moral virtue. At least that's how me and my armchair understand it. But don't confuse honor with good and evil. I think of Avatar Zuko. His loyalty lied with an evil individual, and as a result, his sense of honor worked evil in the world, even if his intent wasn't necessarily there. So now that it's sorta kinda defined, I think we should talk about some of the concentrated stacks of honor that you know and love. Dwarfs. Dwarves were carved from the stone of the world and value a high social standing, which more often than not is tied directly to their clan. This is who their loyalty belongs to. The 5th edition Player's Handbook even declares to be clanless is the worst fate that can befall a dwarf. But this is cultural, and dwarves, like many other races, have free will, and can betray their clan freely if they feel so inclined. What happens then? Well, you're outcast by your clan. I think excommunicated is a good equivalent term. Your clan you grew up with were taught to treasure. Remember, a dwarf is considered young until they're 50. If they pass that threshold, I highly doubt they would ever willingly turn against their clan without some extreme pressure being put to them. I picture breaking off from the clan structure needs a group that sees something that needs to be done to unite, or a new loyalty and culture you can pledge yourself to. I designed one such group a while back, a subsect of dwarves made up of druids and nature clerics, because druids don't use metal, and default dwarven culture is very metal inclined. But they didn't simply dismiss honor, it's more like they recontextualized it through the lens of loyalty to nature instead of the clan. That change of what they're honoring allows them to still be pretty lawful creatures, while at the same time not following the same sense of honor as the other dwarves, so they don't like each other much. Speaking of clans, pledge yourself to mine with the subscribe button down below. Now, what I find neat about the dwarves is they don't choose their loyalties. Their loyalties are kind of chosen for them by birth, and honor can be like that in a lot of instances. There is the ethical theory, it's called the social contract theory. Essentially, by participating in society, you have agreed to the rules of society, and for dwarves that means honoring your clan, and that sets them up to value it highly even though they never chose that path. I also wanted to point out that this could be positive and negative at the same time. Their clansmen are capable of pulling them to and from other matters. For example, if a dwarf wants to go to war, you kinda get dragged into it too if you are part of that same clan, especially if it's a very high-ranking dwarf within your clan. But if you accidentally get yourself into trouble, you have clansmen backing you up, and this can make a very solid structure for why you are loyal to one another. So I figured I'd then go the opposite direction and discuss another popular source of honor and a popular source of internet arguments. That is, of course, the Paladin. Now, a Paladin's sense of honor isn't social, and it's not to something you were born with an obligation to. And while those who don't read the books might miss it, especially if you've only gone through 5th edition, all the way up until about Xanathar's Guide, Paladins were rarely considered anything but good and lawful in nature, and that's kind of what I'm discussing right here. Holy Warrior is the archetype the class is meant to fill, so that is how I am presenting Paladins. This, combined with the nature of law and oaths, leads me to consider a paladin's nature essentially honor mixed with virtue, and they try not to conflict often. As a result, even the slightest betrayal of that honor can very easily become an evil deed, even if it would quickly be forgotten by someone who simply wants to be good. A paladin's path isn't for the faint of heart. There's a reason even one break from this path can often lead to destruction. When morality is tied to rules, it's a much more serious matter compared to when morality is tied to concepts. For example, your goal is to reduce suffering. Your rule is you can't cause suffering. This this is the natural result of the goal. That's how rules are often built. But let's say someone has planted a bomb and there's no way to convince him to, divulging its location. And we're still medieval, so no law will step in if we act. You could torture the location out of him, but then you are breaking the rule even if the goal is no suffering. But since we have tied my morality to these rules so closely, breaking the rules is something I perceive as evil. And even if someone else wouldn't consider it evil, when you choose an action you consider to be evil, that itself is an evil action. So that's why paladins take their oath seriously and stuff. At least that's how I perceive it. You can always redo paladins and restructure them. You'll find a lot of groups that do that, but I think they kind of miss the point of the paladin. Honor-based loyalty also isn't always well-founded. I find the greatest evils don't happen on an individual level. They happen when a big group, finds themselves loyal to an evil being. Producing resistance is hard when people value their loyalty deeply. Law is often a followers alignment. Good and evil are kind of leader alignments, and then the followers will take up those alignments based on their leaders. And chaotic will normally be the opposition and disrespect of those leaders. So you get a good leader, you get an evil chaotic, or you get an evil leader, you get a good chaotic. You can look through all the fancy revolutions in history and you'll start seeing these patterns. Honor is very nebulous in nature. In the background, I asked an AI software to show me what honor looks like, and you can see it's not exact. Thanks for listening to Dungeon Master's Ramblings. I hope to see you soon.